Your engineers say the feature will take 3 sprints. You push back. They push back harder. You have no way to verify that estimate. Is it genuinely complex, or is there a simpler path they haven't considered? You're stuck waiting on engineering for answers about your own product. What if you could ask an AI to read the actual codebase and tell you what's really involved? Not guess, not summarize a doc you pasted in. Actually read the code and give you a grounded answer. That's what Claude Code does, and in this series, I'm going to show you exactly how to use it. Let's start with what you already know. AI chatbots like ChatGPT and CLAUDE.ai are great at writing and brainstorming. You paste in some context, ask a question, and get a useful answer. But here's the limitation. These tools don't see your product. They work in complete isolation. When you ask a chatbot to help you write acceptance criteria, it gives you generic best practices. It has no idea what your app looks like, what your database schema is, or what your team has already built. You're doing the heavy lifting of translating between your codebase and the AI. Claude Code is a different category entirely. It's not a chatbot. It's an AI agent. So what does agent actually mean? A regular AI assistant responds to what you tell it. You give it information, it gives you an answer. An agent goes further. It takes action. It reads files on its own. It runs commands. It makes changes to your project. It ships updates. It doesn't wait for you to copy-paste context into a chat window. It goes and gets the context itself. Think of it this way. A chatbot is like texting a smart friend for advice. You describe your problem, they give you suggestions, and you go do the work. Claude Code is like hiring a contractor who walks into your project, reads every file, inspects the entire codebase, and starts building. They ask you before each major decision. There's a technical concept that makes this possible. It's called the context window. Think of it as the AI's working memory, how much information it can hold and reason about at the same time. Most chatbots have a context window of around 8,000 to 32,000 tokens. That's roughly a few pages of text. Claude Code can hold up to 1 million tokens. That's the equivalent of a 3,000-page book. In practical terms, that means it can read your entire codebase, all of it, and understand how the pieces fit together. It doesn't need you to explain your project. It reads the source code directly. So what can Claude Code actually do end to end? First, it understands your project. It reads every file, maps out how things connect, learns your team's patterns. Then it plans the change. It figures out which parts of the codebase need to be touched and what the safest approach is. Then it builds it. It writes the actual code following the conventions your team already uses. It verifies the change works. It runs your existing tests to make sure nothing broke. Then it ships it. It pushes the updates so your team can review and deploy. And finally, it explains what changed in plain English so you know exactly what went out. That's the full loop. You describe what you want. Claude Code takes it from idea to shipped feature. If you want to learn how to do this yourself, I run free live sessions every Friday at noon Eastern. Scan the QR code on screen to join. Would love to see you there. Here's the part that matters most if you're a PM. You don't need to understand code to use this. You describe what you want in business language. Add a dark mode toggle to the settings page. Show a warning banner when the user's trial is expiring in 3 days. Write acceptance criteria for the checkout flow redesign. Claude Code handles the translation from business intent to technical execution. It reads your codebase, figures out where the change needs to happen, and does the work. You stay in the product conversation. The AI handles the engineering. Let me make this concrete with an example. You open ChatGPT and type, "Help me write acceptance criteria for a dark mode feature." ChatGPT gives you solid generic criteria. Toggle should be in settings. Color should meet contrast ratios. User preference should persist. All true, all reasonable, and none of it specific to your app. Now you ask Claude Code the exact same question. But Claude Code doesn't start writing immediately. First, it searches your codebase. It finds your existing theming system. It sees that you're using Tailwind with CSS variables. It notices you already have a color token file. So the acceptance criteria it writes reference your actual architecture. Dark mode toggle updates the CSS variable --bg primary defined in tokens.css. Existing Tailwind classes in the navbar, sidebar, and card components must respect the new theme. That's the difference. Generic best practices versus criteria grounded in how your product is actually built. This isn't hypothetical. Rakuten, one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world, shared their results after adopting Claude Code. Feature delivery went from 24 working days down to 5. That's not just a developer productivity win. Think about what that means for a PM. Shorter cycles mean you learn faster. You ship a feature, get user feedback, and iterate in the same sprint instead of waiting 3 sprints. Less time in development means less work in progress, less context switching, and less waste. The bottleneck between "we decided to build this" and "users are using it" just got dramatically shorter. 4 things to take away from this video. First, Claude Code is not a chatbot. It's an AI agent that takes action inside your project. Second, the key difference is that it reads your actual codebase. It doesn't just work with what you tell it. Third, PMs don't need to write code to benefit. You describe what you want. Claude Code does the technical work. And fourth, this series will take you from understanding what Claude Code is to using it for real PM workflows. Now that you know what Claude Code is and why it's different, in video 2 we're going to install it together. And I'll show you the single most important file in your entire Claude Code setup. It's called CLAUDE.md. This is where you tell Claude everything it needs to know about your product. I'll see you there. That's the full picture. If you want to go deeper, join my free live session this Friday at noon Eastern on Maven. I walk through this hands-on, answer questions, and show you how to build it yourself. Scan the QR code to join.